끝이 보이지 않는 것 같아도 시작만 해도 잘했다고 서두르지 마 해낼 수 있는 걸 알지도 기다렸던 해피엔딩 순간을 향해 지켜 내달려 다른 별이 더좀
BTS is ready for its return and to hold a massive concert comeback at Gwanghwamun Square on Saturday as the nation prepares for a safe and well-organized event in central Seoul. And the boy band also released their 14-track album Arirang on Friday, with the video for lead track Swim racking up over 5 million YouTube views within just an hour of its release. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims that Iran has lost its ability to enrich nuclear fuel and produce missiles. Meanwhile, Qatar Energy says it may declare force majeure on long-term LNG supply deals, including those with South Korea, due to damage at its facilities. Global K-pop superstars BTS are set to rewrite history once again as they return tomorrow with a massive comeback performance in the heart of Seoul. Without further ado, we go live to this site with our Chung Hae-rim standing by. Hae-rim, we are just 1 day away from seeing the boys together in one place. Tell us, what's the atmosphere like at Gwanghwamun at this hour?
That's right, Dami. We are exactly 24 hours before the main event, but the energy here at Gwanghwamun Square is already incredible, with hundreds of fans here to see the stage. At this very venue, all 7 members of BTS will perform together for the first time since completing their military service. BTS will be performing tracks from their new release, their 5th studio album Arirang, including Swim, which was released Friday, as well as some of their biggest classic hits. Let's hear from some fans or ARMYs who are excited for this historic event.
So I'm really excited because I'm from Switzerland, and the first time I heard about Korea, it was through BTS. So I'm really excited to be able to witness such an important event for Korea.
We've waited so long for this. It's been ARMY's biggest wish to see all the members back on stage together. I hope they put on a perfect show and continue to shine as South Korea's pride on the global stage.
I was waiting 4 years for this moment, so I'm so excited too. And you?
I've been in ARMY for almost 10 years now, so this is my first time seeing BTS live. So I'm so excited for tomorrow. Yay!
It's incredible to see that level of excitement already building. So Harim, how does the venue behind you look right now, and what can fans expect from the concert setup tomorrow as we count down to BTS's historic return?
Yes, Tammy. So the preparations are in the final stages with the main stage and seating areas already set up. Because Gwanghwamun Square is long and narrow, most fans won't be able to see the stage directly and will instead watch the group through pre-installed LED screens. The location is deeply symbolic, with the stage positioned along the historic King's Road, backed by Gyeongbokgung Palace. We'll have to wait and see tomorrow whether BTS actually walks down this path live or if it will be revealed through a pre-produced video. In other news, Big Hit Music announced today that leader RM suffered an ankle injury during rehearsals. But fans, don't worry, because he personally said during a live broadcast that while he will skip the intense choreography, he will absolutely still perform on stage with all the members tomorrow night. So we will able to see all the 7 members on stage tomorrow as planned.
That is certainly a relief for the fans. Now, Harim, this is just the beginning of the boys' comeback. What can we expect in the days and the weeks to come?
Well, Tommy, tomorrow's concert is really just the beginning of their global return. Starting next month, BTS will embark on their Arirang World Tour. The tour will launch with a 3-night residency at Goyang Stadium starting April 9th, before heading overseas for over 80 dates across North America, Europe, Latin America, and Asia. Also, for global fans who cannot be here in Seoul, tomorrow's comeback concert will be broadcast live globally on Netflix. That's all I have at Gwanghwamun. Back to you, Davi.
All right, that was our Jung Harim live from Gwanghwamun Square. Thank you, Harim. And ahead of their comeback performance, BTS has officially unveiled their 14-track album Arirang today, placing strong emphasis on incorporating Korean elements throughout the project. Park Jun-an tells us more.
K-pop boy band BTS released the 14-track full album Arirang at 1 p.m. Korean time on Friday with the title track Swim. BTS members took an active hands-on role throughout the production of Arirang, contributing to songwriting across most tracks and collaborating with top global producers. In a live stream to mark the album's release, BTS members said they intentionally incorporated Korean elements into the album and explained the significance behind the title, Arirang.
정체성, 우리다운 건 무엇인가?
우린 무엇인가?
방탄스러운 건 또 무엇이고 하다가 또 요즘에는 여러 국적을 가진 팀도 되게 많고 한데 우린 또 다 한국 사람이고 하니까 한국스러운 걸 좀 넣어보면 좋지 않을까라는 말이 그때 되게 많이 나왔던 것 같아요.
근데 어떤 사람한테는 어떤 저항이나 한의 상징이면서 어떤 사람들한테는 애환이나 그런 그리움에 대한 노래이고, 그래서 여러 가지 정서가 깔려 있기 때문에
맞아요.
저희가 표현하려는 다양한 감정들을 잘 담아낼 수 있는.
A standout moment comes in the first track, Body to Body, where the latter part of the song features a subtle yet powerful interpolation of the melody from the traditional Korean folk song, Arirang. When asked about the group's emphasis on incorporating Korean elements into their comeback album, a music critic said it fosters fans to dig deeper into exploring Korean culture.
I think BTS raises global interest in the identity of Korean music, and in doing so, it can serve as a catalyst for worldwide attention toward our traditional cultural heritage and history.
BTS album doesn't end with sampling. They bring the folk song into a modern reimagining that weaves in the soul of Korea's most iconic tune, symbolizing longing, reunion, and resilience. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
And marking BTS's return, fans are pouring in from overseas, fueling a sharp rise in arrivals to South Korea in recent weeks. Kim Jun-ong tells us more.
As BTS gears up for a long-awaited performance in Central Seoul on Saturday, fans from around the world are already arriving, eager to witness what many are calling historic.
To watch if we can get near there, so it's very happy. As long as we are part of the history comeback.
Tickets aren't a requirement for everyone. For many fans, visiting BTS's home country alone holds special meaning.
For many years, so knowing that they're coming back, it's really an amazing feeling.
We didn't get the ticket. A movie night together with other friends.
Their visit and meaningful journey to the birthplace of BTS is a trend that's reflected in the numbers. Foreign arrivals to South Korea have surged by more than 30% this March from a year earlier. According to data from the Ministry of Justice, nearly 1.1 million foreigners entered the country between March 1st and 18th, up roughly 32.7% on year. Such a spike is widely attributed to a rise in visitors ahead of BTS's comeback concert on Saturday, with arrivals expected to climb further as last-minute travelers are not yet fully reflected in the data. The increase was particularly pronounced among teenagers and people in their 20s, a core part of BTS's global fan base. Arrivals in these groups jumped 40% and 35.2% respectively, exceeding the overall growth rate. By region, Asia accounted for the largest share of arrivals at about 910,000, followed by North America, Europe, and Oceania. Arrivals rose across all regions except Africa, with Europe seeing a standout increase of 51%. In response to the surge, authorities have introduced special measures to streamline entry procedures. Additional immigration counters are being deployed during peak arrival times, along with extended staffing to shorten wait times and support tourism and local businesses. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
Now, with thousands of fans expected to pack Central Tower for BTS's comeback, authorities are ramping up safety measures ahead of what could be a historic gathering at Gwanghwamun Square. Our Moon Hae-ryung went there to file this report.
A sea of purple is expected to flood Central Seoul this weekend. But before the music begins, safety is taking center stage. Authorities in South Korea carried out a high-level on-site safety inspection Friday, just one day ahead of BTS's highly anticipated full-group comeback performance at Gwanghwamun Square. The inspection, led by the Interior and Safety Minister alongside officials from Seoul City, police, fire authorities and HYBE, reviewed crowd control, emergency response systems and potential risk factors along the entire event route, from subway access points to the main stage and nearby rooftops.
The top priority is public safety, with many international visitors expected at the BTS Comeback concert in Gwanghwamun. We hope this event will showcase not just K-culture, but also what K-safety looks like in Korea.
The concert, set for March 21st, is expected to draw up to 260,000 people, marking the first time since the 2002 and 2006 World Cup celebrations that more than 200,000 attendees will gather in the Gwanghwamun area for a cultural event. With those numbers in mind, authorities are rolling out what they describe as an unprecedented stadium-level crowd management plan. Around 6,500 police officers will be deployed, along with some 800 emergency personnel and over 100 pieces of rescue equipment, including ambulances. Organizers are dividing the area into multiple controlled zones, installing 31 entry gates and setting up metal detectors at all access points to prevent dangerous items from entering. Officials are also preparing for worst-case scenarios, including terror threats, with specialized response teams and reinforced surveillance systems in place. Transportation will also be heavily impacted. Major roads around Taejongdaero will be closed starting the night before the event, while nearby subway stations, including Gwanghwamun, Gyeongbokgung and City Hall, will be bypassed during peak hours on the day of the concert. On-site inspections also focus on potential bottlenecks, nearby construction zones and structural safety of stage equipment, as well as contingency plans for sudden crowd surges when BTS members appear. The group itself has urged fans to prioritize safety. Leader RM called for cooperation with on-site staff, emphasizing that order and consideration from each fan will be key to making the event successful. Moon Hae-ryung, Arirang News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held his second press conference since the outbreak of the war, asserting that Iran has effectively lost its capacity to enrich nuclear fuel and manufacture ballistic missiles. Kim Seo-young has more.
The war in the Middle East has now entered its third week. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held his second press conference since the outbreak of the war, where he said that Iran has effectively lost its capacity to enrich nuclear fuel and manufacture ballistic missiles. He added that signs of cracking are emerging within Iran's leadership, signaling the possibility that the conflict could end sooner than many expect. Netanyahu also said that Israel acted alone in attacking Iranian infrastructure related to the South Pars gas field. He also dismissed claims that Israel sought to draw the U.S. into the conflict as fake news. In Washington on Thursday, U.S. President Donald Trump said he had admonished Netanyahu for the strike on South Pars. Answering a question from the press during a meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, Trump added that the U.S. and Israel are independent but get along great. He also said that he would not send any more troops to the Middle East. Israel has expanded operations into northern Iran and the Caspian Sea, where it claims to have destroyed key Iranian naval facilities. Meanwhile, conflicting reports emerged over a U.S. F-35 fighter jet, with Tehran claiming it was shot down and Washington denying it, saying the jet made an emergency landing. Iran is restricting passage through the Strait of Hormuz to assert control over the key oil route, with reports of a $2 million fee for safe passage. It is understood that Tehran wants to demonstrate its dominance over the waterway, as about 20% of the world oil supply passes through the strait. Meanwhile, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said in written testimony that Iran made no efforts to rebuild its nuclear program. The hearing further highlighted views that are different from those expressed by President Trump. Kim Seo-young, Arirang News.
And as the conflict in the Middle East escalates, concerns over long-term energy supply disruption intensify. South Korea, one of the largest importers of Qatari LNG, may have to brace for the termination of its energy contracts. An Sung-jin has the details.
Fears over a global energy crisis intensify after major energy facilities in the Middle East were damaged. Qatar Energy announced on Friday that it may invoke force majeure on long-term LNG contracts with key importers including South Korea, China, Italy, and Belgium for up to 5 years. Its CEO said the decision comes after a direct attack on its critical LNG infrastructure in Ras Laffan Industrial City. The strike by Iran targeted a facility responsible for roughly 20% of global LNG supply. 2 LNG production lines and 1 gas-to-liquids facility were destroyed. The damage knocked out 17% of Qatar Energy's total export capacity, with repairs expected to take 3 to 5 years. According to Qatari authorities, the attack is estimated to cut the country's annual output by approximately 12.9 million tons. This attack came as a retaliatory strike by Iran on energy infrastructure across Gulf states, including Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia.
Unfortunately, this act of sabotage reflects nothing but an aggressive and irresponsible policy and a dangerous escalation by the Iranian side.
South Korea is one of the largest importers of Qatari LNG. Although it has diversified supply sources to include the U.S. and Australia, Qatar still accounts for roughly 20% of its imports, with long-term contracts covering about 6.1 million tons annually. The state-run Korea Gas Corporation stated that current reserves exceed mandatory levels and can sustain demand through the end of the year. And on Friday morning, the Blue House said that Qatar accounts for about 14% of Seoul's LNG imports this year, and that alternative suppliers are available. It added that with uncertainty increasing, the government will closely monitor supply and prices and respond as needed. However, prolonged disruptions could force countries into fierce competition for limited LNG supplies on the spot market, driving up prices not only for industrial sectors, but also energy costs for households. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In the meantime, the Blue House says it's in close communication with key partners, including the U.S., on how South Korea can contribute to the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. A Blue House official told Arirang News on Friday that Seoul hopes global maritime logistics will return to normal as soon as possible, acknowledging that the safety of international shipping lanes and the freedom of navigation serve the interests of all countries. The same official added that the government is carefully reviewing its response options, taking into account domestic laws and procedures, as well as its defense posture on the Korean Peninsula. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump urged several countries, including South Korea, to send warships to the strait to help reopen the blockaded passage. In other news, North Korea has flaunted a new battle tank system with regime leader Kim Jong-un attending a test drill with his daughter once again accompanying him. Our Oh Soo-young has more on what this indicates about the North's battlefield capabilities of strength and its implications.
Kim Jong-un has claimed North Korea's new battle tank has unmatched capabilities as he attended a drill that showcased his push for high-tech weaponry, while again placing his teenage daughter into the spotlight. The North Korean Central News Agency reported Friday that Kim oversaw a joint offensive tactical drill by infantry and tank subunits at a military training base in Pyongyang. At the center of the exercise was a new tank equipped with an active protection system, which the North says can automatically detect and intercept incoming anti-tank missiles and drones. State media claimed the system showed a 100% hit rate, striking threats approaching from multiple directions. The report also said drones were used to hit enemy command points and anti-armor positions based on real-time reconnaissance. South Korea's Unification Ministry said Friday that the drill seems to be a reaction to the 11-day Freedom Shield regular exercise between Seoul and Washington.
There was no specific mention of South Korea and the U.S., but as it was held during their joint military drill, it seems to be responsive to that.
But analysts say the significance goes beyond a simple response to Allied drills.
North Korea is no longer focusing only on nuclear weapons. It is also pushing to modernize its conventional weapons. At the core of that is a rapid shift toward digital and AI-based systems. That's what draws our attention. In this latest tank drill, the North highlighted a remote integrated automated fire control system, suggesting the tank is no longer just an armored vehicle, but is being turned into an advanced combat platform.
Also drawing attention were photos of Kim's daughter Chue riding in the tank alongside her father. This comes after she was recently photographed firing a pistol and a rifle.
Kim Jong-un appears to be symbolically passing on his own leather jacket and tank to his daughter. Until last year, Kim Jue was mostly presented as an observer, but now she's shown as more than that. It seems they're intent on building the image of a future warrior and commander.
Carefully staged as it may be, the drill perhaps offers an insight into how Kim Jong-un is envisioning and shaping the future of his regime and military capabilities. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
As Korea and France mark 140 years of ties this year, French chefs are visiting southern Korea to explore local ingredients that could be used in France. For more, we have our culture correspondent, Park Kwon-woo. Welcome back, Kwon-woo.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kwon-woo, what's been happening in the southern parts of the country?
Yes, so starting Wednesday, hundreds of French ships coming from 22 different countries, including France and the U.S., are exploring local ingredients in Jeollanam-do province, the southwest part of the country, in a 5-day program. And divided into 3 groups, they took part in activities including tasting temple cuisine, traditional soy sauce making, and abalone and seaweed harvesting. And tomorrow, they'll also visit one of Korea's renowned oyster farms to explore more. And as I join one group, let's take a look at how they're actually enjoying the experience. Savoring one by one, these French chefs explore the depth of Korean flavors, even in the cold rain. From tofu wraps to Korean herb pancakes, oak mushrooms, and dried radish kimchi, they sample each dish with curiosity while asking a lot of questions. Nodding in approval and with a thumbs up, they capture every moment with their camera phones. In partnership with the master chefs of France, Jeollanam-do province, and private companies, around 200 French chefs are touring places like Changsong and Damyeongun County for about a week, exploring local ingredients they could bring back home.
Here in this region, you make a lot of very, very good product. I use some of them in my kitchen. I love the soy sauce and especially the soy sauce and kimchi. Kimchi in my region, we make something similar, but I prefer kimchi.
Korean tofu is very different from French tofu. I'd love to use it in my dishes, maybe in a fusion style.
Led by monk Gwan, they even dive into the sustainable philosophy of temple cuisine, learning to better understand and appreciate the local ingredients before their meal.
Renowned chefs like them usually source their ingredients directly from farms or use organic produce. So this is a good opportunity to connect with local farmers to understand each other's needs and build partnerships.
And the chef's passion for learning about Korean ingredients doesn't stop at simply tasting them. They go one step further by making traditional Korean soy sauce themselves. They began by stacking fermented soybean blocks into deep jars. Then pour in bamboo salt water, a key ingredient in the process, under the lead of a Korean national master artisan of traditional chang. The jars are filled to the brim, ending with a prayer for a successful fermentation. Tasting various soy sauces, the chefs began thinking about using Korean flavors back home.
We are looking for ingredients that are just unique, powerful in tradition, and it helps us to do some very great innovation. Like I'm doing fundraising or gala dinner right now, and I could see doing a special order with the 5-year-old soja sauce that I just got.
Impressed by the quality, the chefs say they've gained inspiration for their creations, even requesting product lists and asking about import timelines and quantities. Demand for soy sauce is especially strong, with some already looking to scale up supply.
And with plans already in motion, Korean flavors are set to reach more tables worldwide.
Indeed. Now, Konu, I also heard the Master Chefs of France also had their regular Congress here in Seoul this week. Tell us more about the Congress.
Yes, so the 70th edition of this Congress took place in Seoul over 3 days starting last Sunday. And hundreds of culinary experts gathered to discuss the values and origins of gastronomy, including fermentation. And at the gala dinner, the chefs had a chance to taste Korea's fresh seafood while watching a barbecue show grilling abalones. And another highlight was around 50 companies showcasing premium Korean ingredients, including traditional chang and sea urchin-infused soy sauce, while exploring export opportunities.
And I understand many companies competed for a chance to showcase their products, right?
That's right. So an inaugural selection contest took place in March with 25 companies chosen. And they will head to Paris this May to test their products in the European market, where 3 finalists will be selected at a closing ceremony. The winning products will then have the chance to enter global markets.
Preparations are already underway for next year's event, where chefs from France, the U.S., and Saudi Arabia will select premium Korean ingredients and introduce them to MCF members worldwide.
And with preparations already underway, expectations are growing for a new business model to bring Korean flavors to the world.
That's absolutely exciting, Konu. Thanks for the coverage tonight.
Always a pleasure.
Starting today, temperatures will gradually rise, bringing clearer signs of spring. We'll see mostly sunny skies this weekend, but we'll continue to see a large day-to-night temperature difference of around 10 to 15 degrees. So be sure not to dress too lightly. Air quality remains fair, making it comfortable to be outdoors, but watch out for frost. It's expected in inland areas tomorrow morning and across central regions on Sunday. So please take extra care of crops and plants. On Sunday, Jeju-do Island may see a brief shower from the afternoon into the evening, with less than 5 millimeters of rain. Skies will be mostly clear nationwide, with air quality at fair levels. Seoul will start the day at 2 degrees, Chuncheon at -2 degrees, Gyeongju at 1 degree. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 15 degrees, Chuncheon at 16 degrees, Busan at 16 degrees. We'll continue to see mostly clear skies through tomorrow. Cloud cover will increase nationwide on Sunday, with overcast conditions in the southern regions and on Jeju-do Islands. That's all for Korea. Here's a look at the weather around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Da-mi. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
Knock knock! The magical door to the world of K animation is swinging wide open.
Let's go to
Meet your instant new BFF, the adorable Catch. Tina Ping will have you hooked from the very first glance. Need a hand? Our Robocar Poli Rescue team is always zooming in to save the day. How about tagging along on Ping Fong and Pal's super exciting quest to reclaim their lost magic? With the mysterious life forms Cabion by your side, you can become a Cabion master and save humanity like the total hero. Protecting children's innocence while igniting their boundless imaginations. That's the magic of Korean animation. K-Animation, the ultimate bestie for kids worldwide.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyun. The war in the Middle East is beginning to test U.S. alliances. U.S. President Donald Trump met with Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi and called on allies to play a greater role in securing the Strait of Hormuz, a key route for global energy shipments. President Trump noted that Japan imports more than 90% of its oil through the strait and hosts around 45,000 U.S. troops, saying he expects Tokyo to step up. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Takaichi voiced strong support for preventing Iran's nuclear development, but stopped short of committing to any direct military role, citing Japan's legal constraints. Instead, Japan announced a huge investment package in the United States worth up to $73 billion. So what does this latest summit tell us about the evolving U.S.-Japan alliance and the broader implications for global security? For answers to this, we connect to Young-sik Bong, visiting professor at the Graduate School of International Studies at Yonsei University. A very big welcome.
Pleased to be here.
And also joining us is Matthew David Jenkins, Associate Professor of Political Science at Gyeongsang National University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start a discussion right away with Professor Bong, with the summit itself. Yesterday's meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Takaichi took place at a very tense moment, as we all know, in the Middle East. How do you see the overall outcome of that summit?
Well, the Prime Minister of Japan, Madame Takaichi, was in envious position to cope with the pressure from President Donald Trump of the United States for dispatching naval ships for the purpose of escorting commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz in the middle of very tense military conflicts taking place between Iran on one hand and the United States and Israel on the other hand. But the conclusion of the summit meeting between the two leaders, although it failed to produce the type of outcome that President Trump hoped to see. Ironically, the result of summit meeting, which is disappointing to the United States, would generate rather stabilizing effect upon the future of the other countries' responses to the ongoing military conflict between Iran and the United States and Israel, because now the United States cannot really take it for granted any military economic assistance from security partners, including Japan. It's a very humble but necessary reality check for President Donald Trump. So next strategic moves that will be taken by Washington will be based upon the actual outcome of this summit meeting between the United States and Japan.
Right. So the meeting itself, it's carried quite a lot of significance, especially for other countries who are watching. And one of the key issues there was the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump said he expects Japan to step up, but Japan actually avoided making any concrete commitment. Professor Jenkins, what do you think made of that gap between U.S. expectations and the response by Tokyo?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a typical alliance gap. The U.S. wants a stronger commitment and wants to ensure the passage of oil to the Strait of Hormuz. Japan is in a tight situation. It can't really offer that, right? It's constrained by its constitution. It's constrained by its past and by its reputation as a pacifist nation. And that's just it's a big ask for Japan. And so I think this is the classic case of, it's not a fundamental misalignment, right, between interests. They both want the same thing. But it is a gap in terms of what the U.S. wants to get out of that alliance and what Japan is willing to offer. And Japan is just showing some strategic ambiguity. Japan wants to, make it clear that it is committed to the U.S. alliance, right, without getting dragged into a conflict that is really not in Japan's bigger interest at the moment, right? And so I think that is a fairly natural outcome at this point, and it's certainly in Japan's interest to wait and see how this all plays out in the end, rather than jumping to make a commitment like of this nature.
Definitely. So very strategic ambiguity and cautious approach we're seeing from Tokyo. In fact, it says there are limits to what it actually can do. And Prime Minister Takaichi explained that Japan must act within its legal framework. Professor Bong, how much do Japan's laws and its pacifist constitution actually restrict these kinds of options?
You describe the Takaichi's response to the request from Washington as an exercise of strategic ambiguity. I would say that it's an exercise of strategic clarity with regards to Japan's own interpretation of the Article 9 of its peace constitution and its adoption of the concept of the collective self-defense right enshrined in the Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations. If these concepts are overstretched beyond the region of Indo-Pacific or near waters to Japan's territory, then it's going to pose escalation of tension and other issues between Japan and other neighboring countries in the region, namely with China. We have witnessed the reverberation of Prime Minister Takaichi's comment that Japan might send its self-defense forces to Taiwan Strait if there would be a military conflict between China and other parties, because that military crisis would constitute what Japanese call the existential threat to the state of Japan. So if this concept of collective self-defense and that of the existential threat to the national security of Japan begin to get stretched out, as United States at this point would like to see, then it's going to pose a great deal of crisis upon Japan. How much it would be required for Japan to make contributions to so-called regional security or multilateral security cooperation. And Japan was never consulted by the United States prior to its decision to start a war in Iran. So using these legal arguments may be critically viewed by Washington, but the responsibility lies in the hand of the Trump administration, which failed to get proper prior consultation with U.S. allies, including Japan, before it criticized Japan's interpretation of its constitution on this matter.
So we'll have to see how Washington would react moving forward. But from Washington's perspective, the argument, it seems quite clear. President Trump pointed out that Japan imports over 90% of its oil through the Hormuz and hosts around 45,000 troops. Professor Jenkins, is this essentially a message that American allies who are, protected by the U.S. should now do more?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think it is, right? It's something that the Trump administration has been saying for quite a long time, right? That its allies should support its efforts more and should do their, pay their fair share, so to speak, or maybe more than that. And yeah, this is an example of that. But it's also like a bigger argument about how we have this shared global system, right? That the U.S. has largely created, but along with its allies, and this global system benefits us all. And it's kind of a rare a rare note of sort of subtlety in the Trump administration, in the sense that it's trying to highlight the shared global interests rather than highlight the fact that we are providing something for you and you must do something for us, right? The tit for tat sort of strategy that's a rhetoric rather that's usual for Trump. For example, we provide security, you got to provide something for us, right? It's similar to that, but it's more like, hey, look, we have this global system, this global network, and you benefit from it, and we benefit from it too. But we have a shared interest in protecting it, right? And it's that kind of logic is maybe more persuasive, maybe not. But yeah, I think it's a little bit like more complicated than just pay up or something like this. It's like, look, this is like a serious an issue, and it's fundamental to both of our interests, right? And so it's a nice bit of subtlety from the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's look back at the bigger picture now. The Strait of Hormuz, it's one of the most critical choke points for global energy supply. Professor Bong, how serious do you think are the risks right now for global energy markets if these kinds of tension continues?
Yeah, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranian military is a serious challenge to many countries whose energy supply is critically dependent upon the safe and ongoing supply of oil by commercial ships. At the same time, because of the retaliation attacks by Iran upon the natural gas facility in Qatar and elsewhere, now the global price of LNG, liquefied natural gas, is also skyrocketing, and Qatar government just issued a warning that it may be disown its long-term contracts and commitments of the LNG supply to South Korea, given the sudden termination of the operation of the LNG facility after this attack. So countries like South Korea is suffering from its vulnerability to the global energy supply. And the sufferings of these countries are very significant, far more significant than the impact upon the oil price inside the United States, because United States is almost self-sufficient in terms of the oil production and supply. So it's a victimization between belligerent Iran and the United States. The best hostage for Iranian military is a national economy of the United States suffering from a high oil price in the global market. So until the United States is going to reach the tipping point, thanks to the high oil price in the global market, it is unlikely for the Trump administration to seriously move in the direction of ceasefire at all costs. So it's very concerning situation. That is why South Korean government just made an announcement as we are speaking in this news program that it demonstrates the intention to join the multilateral consultation group composed with 7 countries, including the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, Canada, France, UK, and Japan, to come up with some solutions for safe passage of commercial vessels without any involvement of U.S. military. so that these military actions will not be subject to any hostile action of the Iranian military in the region. So these countries are coming up with their own solutions for the situation, barring any influence or involvement of the United States.
Right. So given the uncertainty we're seeing, it seems many countries are actually putting their heads together to deal with the situation. Now, let's go back to the situation, the summit between Japan and the U.S. yesterday. Japan also brought a major economic offer. Tokyo announced a second round of U.S. investment worth up to $73 billion, which is more than double, I believe, from the previous package. Professor Jenskins, how significant do you think is the scale of this investment?
Yeah, well, as you said, it's double what they were going to offer before. It represents about 1 to 1.5% of Japan's total GDP. So yeah, definitely it is significant. Is it game-changing? I wouldn't say so. In the context of the $500 billion plus dollars that have already been pledged in investment in other projects, I think this particular set of projects is not necessarily going to change the entire landscape. I'm thinking, these investments are in energy, right? Nuclear modular reactors and things like this, and so that's obviously important. The bigger picture is electronics, right? And it has to do with the supply of electronics, from the to the U.S. or to China, right? And to that in terms of containing China and protecting U.S. investments in high tech. So I think that's the bigger story. But certainly it's significant. I think what it does show is that it shows that look, this is typical for Japan. Japan in the past also has pursued pocketbook diplomacy, right, or economic mercantilism, however you want to call it. It's willing to pay up in terms of investments and it's willing to assist in funding. It's not really excited about. Japan's not really excited about getting involved in wars. That's a very touchy issue, obviously, and so this is typical for Japan's strategy, and it is significant. Ultimately, I don't think it really changes. Probably not going to cause any large structural changes in the relationship or anything like that. So, but yes, definitely a big investment.
So not really a game changer, but it also was quite significant. Dr. Bong, do you think this latest investment actually, in a way, influenced the situation over when the summit happened?
Well, what is very interesting is that we have not heard so much from the media, the Japanese and American side both, about the actual result of the summit meeting between Japan and the United States. That indicates that it must have been a very difficult and hard summit meeting of both leaderships. And the big economic package provided by Japan must have been welcomed by the Trump administration. Any helps would make the leadership look great in front of domestic audience should be welcomed by the president. But of course, that is not equivalent to Japan's government actually agreeing to send naval ships for the safe passage of the vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. But at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of Japanese people and their government. Americans are afraid of sending their own navy into the Strait of Hormuz because they know that it's like sending their men and women in uniform in harm's way. But at the same time, the U.S. government in Washington asked other security partners to do the same in the name of alliance and partnership. So there's no reason for these countries to accept the offer as a rational and reasonable demand by the United States. And why these countries are not so much afraid of possible backlash, if not punishment, from the Trump administration after all the dust gets settled? Because these European countries and Canada and other countries had already suffered from retaliation and punishment and insulting and bullying behavior of the Trump administration of the United States, including the reciprocal tariffs, all the diplomatic, ignorance and the assaults already. So they're basically saying that we are not going to succumb to your pressure anymore because we learned that succumbing to your demand only whet your appetite even further. So they basically declare that we already suffered the cost of entrapment with the United States, and we are going to see our relations with the United States, not just in terms of strategic asset, but in terms of strategic liability and burden as well.
Then, Dr. Bong, do you think the latest meeting between, of course, Japan was the first ally to meet President Trump after this situation, how much of an impact do you think it would have for other U.S. allies?
Well, I mean, it's a good example as a reference point to other allies. But at the same time, all these countries having good relations with the United States since the end of the Second World War share the interest in maintaining the post-war liberal international system because they have been major beneficiaries alongside with the United States. So this is going to be a turning point in terms of the United States and its security and economic partners to reset their partnerships, whether there might be some way to restore, if not improve, the undermined liberal international order for the first 1+ year of the Trump administration in its second term. But it is up to the Trump administration whether it's going to have a serious look into itself if this type of foreign policy behavior can be sustainable, especially when the Republican Party and the administration are facing the midterm election in November this year.
So we'll have to keep close eyes on the latest developments. But as for now, we'll have to conclude our discussion right here. Thank you so much for your insights, Professor Bong.
You're welcome.
And also Professor Jenskins. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.